Clerk will report a resolution.
House Joint Resolution 306, commending the Honorable William James Howell. Resolution passed the House February 23rd, subsequently passed the Senate on February 26th.
The delegate from Stafford, Delegate Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, it is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome to the floor and present to you the 54th Speaker of the Virginia House of Delegates, the Honorable William James Howell.
Delegate Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, on the floor today, we have as our distinguished guests members of Speaker Howell's family, a dear friend to many of us, his wife of 51 years, and his greatest supporter, Ceci Howell. Also here to celebrate with their father are his sons Billy and his fiancée Lisa, and his son Jack and his wife Rebecca. To the entire Howell family, for 30 years you have shared your husband, father, and grandfather with our district and with the Commonwealth. For that we will be forever grateful. Tens of thousands of Virginians prayed fervently for the Speaker's recent recovery, and we pray to God that he will grant your family many long years in a much well-deserved retirement. Speaker Howell grew up in Alexandria, attended Fairfax County Public Schools, earned his bachelor's degree from the University of Richmond, and a law degree from the University of Virginia. He began his professional career in 1977, specializing in will and estate law, and he also provided expertise to several financial institutions around Fredericksburg. In 1987, he successfully ran for the Virginia House of Delegates, where he would go on to serve for 30 years, 15 of those years as Speaker. Back in the district, known to most of us as Bill and Ceci, the Howells have become an integral part of the fabric of our community. No matter how much seniority he earned here in Richmond, he was always a hands-on servant leader, often personally answering phone calls, responding to emails, and meeting with constituents in his log cabin in Falmouth. Speaker Howell had a morning ritual of visiting the local Wawa, not because he was a big fan of coffee, but because he knew he would run into constituents in an informal setting where they would be more comfortable sharing their thoughts and concerns with him. No constituent concern was ever too small, and Speaker Howell certainly sets a high bar for constituent service that we can all aspire to. As an expression of gratitude for his years of service to our community, the Stafford County Board of Supervisors named its newest library in his honor. The William J. Howell branch will serve as a reminder for generations to come of the extraordinary service given by Speaker Howell, but perhaps the most lasting legacy will be the strength he added to this institution that he loves so dearly, and the many delegates he has inspired and mentored over the years who will continue to serve the great people of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Mr. Speaker, one of those delegates stands with me today. I would like to yield the floor to the gentleman from Suffolk, Delegate Jones.
Delegate Jones.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. It's wonderful to have you back in Mr. Jefferson's capital and see that wonderful Bill Howell smile. Hear, hear. You and Ceci and your family have been in our thoughts and prayers for since January, and the thoughts and prayers of so many across the Commonwealth. 20 years ago, I arrived as a newly sworn-in freshman Bill Howell was a 10-year veteran of this body. He was already known as an intelligent, fair, quick-witted, but quiet backbencher that rarely spoke on the floor. 2 years after my arrival, Republicans gained majority control of the House for the first time in Virginia's history. Little did he know how much his world would change in the next 3 years. Bill became the chairman of the Courts of Justice Committee and quickly established a reputation for efficiency and fairness. He did away with the night of the long knives, which was a phrase used to describe the final Courts Committee meeting on late Friday night, the Friday before crossover, where bills were rarely heard but were sent to die. He established a process to hear as best he could every bill that came before that committee, which speaks to his character. In the summer of 2002, when the Republican caucus needed to elect a new Republican speaker, Bill's phone started ringing off the hook. There were calls from members and others in the political arena urging him to seek the speakership, as he was the obvious choice of many to lead our caucus and its institution. Thankfully, he listened. First elected speaker in 2003, there was some who said he was too nice of a guy to serve in the post and wasn't ready to lead the chamber. Boy, were they wrong. Gracious and kind to the core, Bill Howell is one of the most genuine and caring people I've had the pleasure of working with in my 30-plus years public service. Of all his strengths and talents, his servant leadership is what stands out the most in my mind. He would routinely go to a member's office instead of asking them to come to his office. He was never too busy to answer his phone, and if you left him a message, you could be rest assured before the close of the day, he would call you back. He effectively communicated whenever he needed what he needed to be done. He didn't micromanage a situation at hand, but instead he instilled confidence in those he assigned a task to do the job at hand. However, beneath the affable demeanor was one of the most intelligent and savvy leaders Virginia has ever known, in my opinion. Ever the quiet leader, I can count on one hand the number of times he has raised his voice or lost his temper, although I'm sure I gave him many opportunities to do so dealing with me over the years. His top priorities were doing what was best not only for the constituents of the 28th District, but for all Virginians, and especially protecting the integrity of this body and the office of the speakership. He never wavered from these principles, even when standing firm cost him greatly. His humor and quick wit diffused many a tense moment in this chamber and throughout Capitol Square, and his genuine humility gave others unprecedented access to the speaker. We all have Bill Howell stories. If any of you have ever had a call that says, do you have a minute? Well, you know it's going to be more than a minute, and it was something that he wanted you to do. And you might not know this, but he did appoint himself one time as a conferee on one of his own bills. He didn't do anything. All he did was sign it, but he did appoint himself as a conferee. But seriously, as I think of my tenure with him and those who served with him in this body, he had a serious public policy bent. Reforming the state's retirement system was one of his top priorities, and we did that in 2012. And this year, as we know, will be 100% of the rates funded for VRS, which is attributable to the gentleman from Stafford. But his vision and his legacy will be that of transportation. Starting in 2011 with the Virginia Transportation Infrastructure Bank legislation, the landmark transportation funding bill in 2013, and then in 2014, taking the politics out of funding our roads with the smart scale legislation, which made Virginia the first state in the nation to do so and has become a model for the country. But I want to take a moment to address House Bill 2313 in 2013. If you know the history of that bill when it was first introduced, the final version looked completely different at the end of the day. There was much discussion as what should be done to fix our crumbling transportation network. As the bill made its way through the legislative process, it became very clear that much more was needed to be done to solve the challenges for our Commonwealth. The Speaker was instrumental in persuading Governor McDonald of the need for a much greater investment than initially contemplated. The Speaker held firm in his beliefs and was not afraid to lead. Of course, his actions warranted him a primary opponent that spring. That is indeed true leadership, in my opinion. In closing, if you've ever visited Bill at his cabin in Falmouth, you will find a Bible open in the following passage, Matthew 25:40. Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. This passage was not for the visitor, but for the speaker, as to remind him of why he was serving and as he was meeting with someone who needed assistance. Mr. Speaker, I can think of no one more deserving than you to be recognized today for your tireless and dedicated service to our great Commonwealth. I know that I speak for thousands of Virginia when I say thank you for your leadership over the years. On a personal note, I want to thank the gentleman from Stafford for being truly blessing me in my life by his mentorship, his unwavering friendship, but most importantly, his Christian example of servant leadership. Mr. Speaker, I yield to Delegate Thomas.
Delegate Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, the Outstanding Virginian Committee, in partnership with the University of Virginia Frank Batten School of Leadership and Public Policy, recognizes annually leaders who have made an indelible mark on the Commonwealth. Mr. Speaker, with us in the gallery today, we have the Outstanding Virginian Committee, led by Mr. John B. Adams, Jr. Also with the committee here on the floor is former Lieutenant Governor John H. Hager. The Outstanding Virginia Committee is proud to proclaim today that the 2018 Outstanding Virginian is indeed the Honorable William J. Howell.
Delegate Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, it is my honor, along with the gentleman from Caroline, to present this resolution as an expression of the General Assembly's profound gratitude and extraordinary respect for the gentleman from Stafford and our admiration of his exemplary service to God, his family, the General Assembly, and the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, thank you all very much. It's really a privilege and an honor to be back with you all today. I've missed you. Not sure I've missed the daily work. There is life after retirement, although I haven't found it yet. I'm going to. My last day with the state was January 1st, and January 2nd I went in the hospital for 3 weeks, and so I'm still looking forward to that time, but I really, really appreciate the outpouring of support that I got from people while I was in the hospital, the outpouring of love and friendship. It meant so much to me, and so many of you all did respond that way. Those of you who didn't, I've got your name. I really want to thank two ladies. I think they're up in the balcony, Judy Dunnigan and Kathy Roberts. I would not have, oh, there you go, under the gallery. They were with me for so many years, and so much of what I was able to accomplish was because of what they were able to do. And I know each one of you all have situations like that as well. Also, of course, my family. I'm glad to have my boys here and their spouses, and I'm delighted that they could join in this. They've been a tremendous help to me, particularly over the last couple of weeks. But my wife, Ceci, who I think most of you all know, has just really been a pillar of strength, and not just over the most recent unpleasantness, but for the past 51 years. It's really been wonderful. So I'm a blessed man, and I'm a blessed Virginian. I love Virginia. This is such an honor to me. The only thing I love more than Virginia, perhaps, is the Virginia House of Delegates. But thank you all very much for allowing me to be here with you today.
Speaker Howell, Ceci, Jack, and Billy, there's not much left to be said. You know, it's interesting. I've had the privilege to do this job for about 60 days. And I can remember giving speeches everywhere saying I really only had one goal, and that is to match Bill Howell's integrity and character. And boy, is that a tough thing to do. You're a special, special man. So thank you for being here today. It's wonderful that we can honor such a public servant, and you really make that word come alive. So thank you, Speaker Howell.